So now let's talk about external government mechanisms such as um, regulators, creditors, what's the market doing, etc. So these are three um, external governance mechanisms. They're forces outside the firm that have a strong influence on top level management decisions and actions, and they consist of what is called the market for corporate control, as well as two powerful stakeholders, regulators and creditors would be actually the third one. So the market for corporate control is an external mechanism that becomes active when a firm's internal controls fail it. It's composed of individuals and firms who buy ownership positions or take over potentially undervalued firms. They do this to form a new division in a established diversified firm, merge two previously separate firms, and usually replace the target's firm's management team to revamp the strategy that caused the low performance. The market for corporate control governance mechanism should be triggered by a firm's poor performance relative to industry competitors. A firm's poor performance, often demonstrated by its below average return, is an indicator that internal governance mechanisms have failed. That is, their use did not result in managerial decisions that maximize the shareholder value. As a governance mechanism, investors sometimes use the market for corporate control to take an ownership position in firms that are performing well. This suggests that the market for corporate control is an imperfect governance mechanism. Mergers and acquisitions are highly complex strategic actions with many purposes and potential outcomes. The market for the corporate control is a blunt instrument for corporate governance. Nonetheless, this governance mechanism does have the potential to represent shareholders' interests. In most cases, hostile takeovers are the principal means by which a market for corporate control is activated. A hostile takeover is an acquisition of a target company that's unwanted by the company top executives and board of directors. Firms targeted for hostile takeovers can use multiple defense tactics to fend off that takeover attempt. Increased use of market for corporate control has enhanced the sophistication and variety of these defense tactics used. Because the market for corporate control tends to increase risk for managers, one defensive tactic called a golden parachute results in a huge payment to the CEO and sometimes other top executives if the firm is taken over. A poison pill allows shareholders to convert shareholders' rights into numerous common shares at a huge discount if an individual or a company acquires more than a set amount of the target firm stock. Most institutional investors oppose the use of defense tactics because such defenses are generally seen as a way to entrench top managers in those positions. The United States is not the only country that's been has seen changes in regulations regarding corporate governance. However, in the United States, the regulators are observers of the firm's governance practices, have been concerned about more egregious behavior beyond mere ineffective corporate strategies. Partly in response to governance breakdowns in the United States, Congress enacted the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in 2002 and passed the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act in 2010. Those are referred to as SOX and Dodd-Frank frequently. Most believe that SOX has led to generally positive outcomes in terms of protecting shareholders. Dodd-Frank is the most sweeping set of financial regulatory reforms in the United States in a century. And what Dodd-Frank does is to create a financial stability oversight council, which is headed by the Treasury Secretary. It established new systems for liquidation of certain financial companies, and it provided for a new framework to regulate derivatives, established new corporate governance requirements. It regulated credit rating agencies and securities, and established a Consumer Protection Bureau and provided for extensive consumer protection and financial services. Because of these two acts, corporate governance mechanisms have received great scrutiny because we now have a legal forum to do so. More intensive applications of governance mechanism as mandated by SOX and Dodd-Frank affect firms' choice of strategies today. Creditors using legal institution and negotiation tactics can have a profound influence on the decisions of a firm when a firm is in default, although actual defaults are not that common. More prevalent is a firm's violating financial covenants associated with a loan. It's not uncommon for a board seat to be held by a representative of a large creditor. So research has shown that bank-appointed directors can serve as a certification role in that their presence increases the confidence of other creditors that are being represented. Firms with better governance characteristics can often obtain lower interest rates on their debt. Governance mechanisms really should encourage responsible behavior within an organization. What we talked about in this chapter is really ensuring that managers work effectively toward meeting their obligations to maximize shareholders' wealth. However, shareholders only one group of the firm's stakeholders, as we've talked about. Over the long term, the demands of other key stakeholders like employees, customers, suppliers, community also have to be satisfied to maximize shareholder wealth. For that reason and others, governance mechanisms must be carefully designed and implemented so that managers are not focused on maximizing short-term returns and they consider the interest of all stakeholders. Top-level managers are expected to lead their firms in ways that will serve shareholders, the needs of other stakeholders, and society at large. A firm's actions and the outcome should result in at least minimally satisfying the interests of important stakeholders. Stakeholder governance by ethical behavior by top-level managers is being taken seriously in countries throughout the world. Internal corporate governance mechanisms designed and used by ethically responsible leaders and companies increase the ability of the firm's interests in a broad stakeholder group. Decisions and actions of the board of directors have an effective deterrent on unethical behavior by top-level managers. It's important to remember that through effective governance that results from well-designed governance mechanisms and the appropriate countries, institutions, top-level managers working with others can select and use a variety of strategies that result in both strategic competitiveness and earning above average returns.